Welcome back to the channel. So I hit a snag doing this epoxy pour. After I chamfered the bottom of this tabletop, it revealed some uncured epoxy. Now after examining the rest of the epoxy on this table, I'm confident that this is the only area that's uncured. Now obviously this isn't the most ideal thing to happen, but it is very fixable. So if something similar like this has happened to you during your epoxy projects, stick around and I'll show you how you can fix it. So it goes without saying, the first thing we're going to want to do here is remove all the uncured epoxy. So I'm using a utility knife to cut away the bulk of the material. My goal here is to completely expose the cured epoxy, so when we pour in fresh epoxy for the repair, it has a stable surface to bond to. Since we'll have to go back over this area with a router and then some sandpaper to clean everything up, having a stable surface for our material to bond to will help mitigate the possibility of any chip out that may happen. Once we got the majority of this garbage all cut out, I'm going to take this tongue depressor that I cut a bit of an angle into, and I'm going to use it to scrape away the rest of the mess that I couldn't otherwise remove with the utility knife. This will also let me get right up close to the cured resin and not leave any gouges in it, since I'm not looking to fix any more than I need to. And then I'm going to take some acetone on a rag and give the area a good scrub. This will help remove any leftover oils and uncured epoxy bits. Next, I'm going to take my utility knife with a good sharp blade on it, and I'm going to make a series of cuts going across the entirety of the epoxy. This is going to help create a mechanical lock between the old and the new epoxy once we do our repair. Next, we're going to make a dam to contain the epoxy once we do our pour. For this, I'm using a stir stick wrapped in tuck tape. The epoxy won't stick to the tuck tape, so it'll help us out when we go to do the demold. Then what you want to do is get the absolute worst hot glue gun you have available to you and glue the stir stick down. Now I don't want any leaks, so I went pretty heavy with the glue. As well, I don't want any of the epoxy to be absorbed by the end grain of the sapwood. This would just cause a whole new set of problems I don't want to deal with. So I made sure the hot glue was completely covered any of the sapwood that may have otherwise come in contact with the epoxy. And now we can go ahead and mix up some new epoxy. I'm using a faster curing epoxy here. Usually after about 24 hours, I find it safe for power tools again. I'll leave a link in the description just in case you're interested. Now we can go ahead and pour in our new epoxy. Since there's some undercutting on the epoxy that we're trying to patch, this is a good place for air bubbles to hide. So as I'm doing the pour, I'm tapping on the face of the stir stick and the surface of the table. This will help knock loose any potentially trapped air bubbles. I decided to do the demolding after about 12 hours, so the resin was firmed up but not completely cured. Stick with me on this one, there is a method to my madness. I'm using a heat gun to soften up the hot glue, making it easier to pull everything away from the table. And once everything's pulled away, we're just left with the laborious process of scraping away all the leftover glue. Before I do that though, I'm going to take a razor blade and cut a 45-degree chamfer into the partially cured resin. The idea here is that it'll make it easier when we do our router pass when everything's cured up. Then I'm going to take my sander and sand all the new resin flush with the old resin. This will ensure that our next router pass will go smoothly. And now we can take our router, and with one quick pass, we have our chamfer back. And then with a little bit of cleanup and some finish, it's like nothing happened at all. Anyways, I want to thank you for sticking around this long, and hopefully this video was of some value to you. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.